Hey everybody, Tim here with tonight's episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. We got Season 4, Episode 26, and Season 5, Episode 1, Redemption, the season finale, season premiere. It's a big episode, just lots of stuff going on. For starters, this is the 100th episode of The Next Generation. So that alone, that's huge. It's quite the accomplishment. For me personally, I like this episode and I don't. There's a lot of stuff going on in it, and some of it I really enjoy, but some of it not so much. I've said it over and over again. I like how The Next Generation has brought a new awareness into Klingon culture and heritage. I think they're doing a fantastic job in that. That being said, as I've mentioned in some of my previous videos that you guys have disagreed with, I'm not a very political person, so anytime stuff like that starts coming into it, it starts losing me a little bit. And this episode's very heavy in the politics. But I still got through it, and I can still appreciate this episode. I still like it. So this episode introduces the Duras Sisters, who are pretty important in Star Trek. We see them here. We don't see them again until Deep Space Nine, but we do see them again in The Next Generation and even into the movie Generations. So they are very important. We also see the return of Tony Todd, the Candyman, as Captain Kurn now. We last saw him when he was in the exchange program, and he came aboard the Enterprise as a commander, but now he is Captain Kurn. So the Klingons are basically going through a civil war because they're trying to figure out who would be the right chancellor. The Duras sisters want their nephew, whereas everybody else basically wants Gowron. I can't say his name, Gowron. And that's the one where Picard's behind. He supports Gowron, who, spoiler alert, he does get it. And it's causing some strife between the Klingon Empire. Now, on top of this, we know that Kurn and Worf's father was dishonored because he was supporting the Romulans, when in reality we know from Sins of Our Father that it was actually Duras' father. So we got a lot of stuff going on here. And we start seeing Duras working with the Romulans. Now, in 3 episodes ago, the episode where Geordi was brainwashed, we had a new villain, and we didn't know who it was. We just knew that she was in the shadows and that she was a Romulan. This character has now come out of the shadows, and we know that it was Denise Crosby as Sela, who Denise Crosby, as most of you know, is the actress that plays Tasha Yar. Now, as we get into part 2, Sela comes aboard the Enterprise and talks to Picard, and it turns out that Sela is Tasha Yar's daughter from the alternate universe that we saw in yesterday's Enterprise. So if you guys remember yesterday's Enterprise, there was a lot of time travel going on, so bear with me, where the Enterprise C came to the future, which changed history, so Tasha was now alive, and then that Tasha boarded the Enterprise C and went back to its own time. So now, and when that happened, everything reverted back to normal, so now our Tasha's dead again. Even though our Tasha's dead, that Tasha was still alive on the Enterprise C when it got abducted by Romulans. She ends up becoming partners with a Romulan. They have a child together, and that's Sela. A lot of stuff going on. Now, technically, that means that she should only be like 25 or something, and clearly Denise Crosby is older than that. But still, it's a lot of interesting stuff is going on. On top of this, Data mentions that he has been in Starfleet for 26 years, and he has now temporarily been promoted to captain, which is some amazing scenes in there where he's the captain of a starship, because I think it said like 23 starships are going to the neutral zone to basically blockade the Romulans from entering the Klingon space, and the commanding officer doesn't want anything to do with Data, and Data's giving orders contradicting what Picard has said, and this commander's like, no, you're doing this wrong, you don't know what you're doing. And of course, it turns out the Data is correct, because Data is always correct. Amazing scenes, amazing acting abilities in there. Brett Spiner shines like no other. It's some really, really great scenes. I couldn't get enough of it. So during all of this, temporarily Worf basically resigns from Starfleet because Picard doesn't want to get overly involved. And really interesting that Worf leaves, which leaves the tactical position open. And briefly, I think it's like one scene, we see that O'Brien has taken that spot, which is kind of interesting because O'Brien mentions, I forgot the episode, but under Captain Maxwell, the one where he's blowing up the Cardassian, the Wounded, where he's blowing up the Cardassian ships, that O'Brien was the tactical officer under Captain Maxwell. So it would make sense that Picard would have him replace Worf. And at this point, O'Brien is just kind of growing in popularity. Like, we saw him in the very first episode, the pilot encounter at Farpoint, and at this point now he's married, he's a chief, he's doing really well for himself, and it only grows as we get into Deep Space Nine fairly soon. So it's kind of interesting. By the end of the episode, Worf does come back, because all things have to go back to the way they were, but this is a good episode. It's an interesting episode. Like I said, I have a lot of trouble getting into the politics. For me personally, I just can't do it. It's just not who I am. And that's caused some issues with previous episodes, as some of you have mentioned, where I'm just like, I just don't like this episode. You guys are like, this is great. It's just not who I am, which is what Star Trek's all about. It's about including everybody, and kind of everybody's entitled to their own opinions, and that's just mine. But overall, this episode was a good one. I did enjoy it despite the politics, just because of the little scenes, like seeing Sela, seeing Kurn come back, the fantastic scene of Guinan and Worf in the holodeck doing target practice, and Worf's like, I'm on level 15, and Guinan's like, I guess I could go down to that level just for you. Whoopi Goldberg's the greatest. Like, I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times, Guinan needed her own movie with Q. But so for those who have seen this two-parter, to me, because of the politics and stuff, I thought it was kind of the weakest of the season finales compared to like Time's Arrow and Best of Both Worlds, and especially the series finale, but we won't even go there. For those who have seen this one, what did you guys think? Did you guys like it? Did you dislike it? What do you guys think about the Klingon culture and how it's developing? And what do you guys think about seeing the actress that played Tasha come back as her daughter now? Because that was huge. That was groundbreaking. So go ahead, let me know. Thank you guys for everything. I do appreciate you, and I will see you guys next time for Darmok.